So Rajiv ji, I find that the notions of feminism in Western philosophy is starkly different from the Dharmic philosophy. Let me just quote that. So, the biblical notions of gender differ from the Dharmic notions very centrally. Eve is created from one of Adam's ribs, and this happens after Adam already exists by himself. That is, woman was derived from man. A competing story in Genesis 1 has them created equally. The first human pair in Sanskrit narratives, Yama and Yami, were co-created as twins. Yami, female, had her own powerful identity which is not subservient to Yama, male. Shiva, masculine, and Shakti, feminine, are often depicted as codependent and inseparably intertwined. Indeed, the entire cosmos is conceived of as Shakti or female energy. But despite this, nowadays Hinduism is framed as a religion being unfair to women and West as champions of feminism. And I think the leftists in India have also managed to get a lot of women on their side. So how did this get misconstrued?
You know, we're talking about digestion and how the digestion gets distorted and turned against you. Look up one of the pioneers of Western feminism, a lady who's still alive, she's in late years, Gloria Steinem. Gloria Steinem is a pioneer of Western feminism, one of the pioneers. She came and spent time in India.
Oh.
She was an undergraduate and she had some problem, personal life problem. And she decided to leave and came to India. She lived in actually J.C. Kapoor, the late J.C. Kapoor's farmhouse. She came and stayed there. J.C. Kapoor was my friend until he passed away. The movie Monsoon Wedding was filmed in that farmhouse.
Okay.
So she came and stayed there. And so even J.C. Kapoor told me a lot of things about Gloria Steinem. But you can find in her biographies, in her books, her love for India. She came and she became part of women's movement in India. And she was surprised, and she was writing back articles to her college magazine. And she says it's very interesting that we don't have this in the West where women are empowered and they're going for long march, you know, and they're going for activism, and this is a very campus kind of a thing. There was Gandhian marches, various kinds of marches going on when she was here. So she got this idea from India and it inspired her. In fact, later she wrote that my life changed from before India visit to after India visit because of what I saw the women of India doing. So this is very interesting that even a pioneering Western feminist got so much inspiration from here.
Right.
Yeah. But the feminists have denied all that.
Yeah.
And the role of Ford Foundation is very important.
Okay.
Because Ford Foundation started funding. They wanted to empower villagers against urbanites and this caste against that caste. They started funding all these studies. Ford Foundation started out after World War II. It was decided that, you know, there is no more British Empire. So who's going to do the social engineering? Who's going to do the colonial management of those people? They're all over the place now. They're getting one country after another is getting freedom. So how we protect Western supremacy? And the Soviet camp is there. So they're going to make them into Marxists and communists also. So what do we do? So Ford Foundation, there were some meetings where Ford Foundation, FBI, and the precursor to the CIA. The CIA was not formed but a prior organization. They had some meetings in which it was decided that we should start our own foundation should go all over the world, and we should fund and nurture the leftists. Rather than losing them to the Soviets, we'll nurture them, then we'll know what they're up to, and we can even guide them. And rather than hating us, they can hate each other.
Wow.
So it was very successful.
Yeah.
Because rather than them then creating an anti-American revolution, we are funding them and we'll become friends with them. We let them criticize America also up to a point. So it looks like authentic. Okay. So Ford Foundation, I mean, the money is from a capitalist Ford company.
Yeah.
And it's from the United States, no secret. No. They did not use any secret and said, oh, we'll hide our identity. It is very clear who they are. But the power of money and greed in India is such that people, beggars. So the largest amount of money in billions that the Ford Foundation has given anywhere in the world is in India.
Oh my.
They are not successful anywhere else, not welcome in China. So India's program is huge. So under the guise of, village development, health development, water development, women's empowerment, under these nice positive sounding things, what they are doing is the kind of message they are giving is all this kind of breaking India message. So they were very successful in capturing the leftists, making them very polished, good speakers, articulate, English speaking, globe trotting. They created the last 50, 60, 70 years of 50, 60 years of this kind of a genre of thinking very successfully in India. So the biggest contradiction of the leftists, you can tell them, is that they're all products, either directly or indirectly, their mentors, they're all products of people like Ford Foundation.
Right.
So what hypocrisy?
Yeah.
What hypocrisy? So, Ford Foundation giving them a good life, they're flying them around in first class tickets here and there, taking good care of them. They're all very internationally certified and all that.
Right.
And they're supposedly championing the poor. Okay.
Yeah.
So that is the origin of the Indian feminism, Indian feminist movement. Now, in terms of their ideology, actually they should be fighting the Christian and Islamic countries regarding women.
Right.
Because those doctrines have so much against women embedded in them. None of the Judeo-Christian prophets, the main prophets at least, were women. I mean, it's a masculine God, masculine prophets. The whole thing is a very masculine doctrine. Women, the highest level woman is Mary, who is not Devi.
Yeah.
She's not divine. She just is important because she is used to deliver the Jesus. That is her role. But she's not herself divine person. She's not somebody you worship per se. Catholics allow a little bit of that, and Protestants hate them for it because they think it's idolatry and it sort of contaminates the purity of God because you're bringing this woman in there. And this whole idea of original sin.
Right.
Original sin is blamed on Eve.
Yeah.
That Eve tempts Adam
Yeah.
and he does something wrong in the Garden of Eden. He disobeys God, and so they do this, and therefore that original sin they're condemned. God is so angry, he says all your children, grandchildren, progeny forever and ever will be condemned to original sin. So all of us are being the children of Adam and Eve are all condemned to original sin. From the time we are born, we are condemned to original sin. So the most important problem and catastrophe which Christianity has to deal with is blamed on woman.
Right.
Okay, so the women, sexuality, all of that is sort of wrong, evil, and all that comes from there, and Islam picks it up also. So these people come with a big hypocrisy to accuse us in the name of some Western feminism.
Right.
This is a hoax, in my opinion. I think there are serious problems our women face, and we ought to remedy them. We ought to remedy whatever the problems are that women face. We should fix them.
Right.
But we do not need the West to give us the solutions, because we also have good solutions here.
Right.
We've had a history of our own revolutions, internal internal new smritis being made, people challenging from within. So we need internal thinking, not fixed on old ideas. We need internal thinking, but we don't need their help.
I also find that homosexuality has never been a taboo in the Dharmic society. Perhaps it was not encouraged openly and promoted, but it was never made out to be sinful as it is construed in the West. But today it looks like India is the one having issues with it. Like, at least I find that among my millennials, where they say West is more open to it, but we are not.
Transvestites, hijras, are old jati. They're there for in India, very long time.
Yeah.
There's no taboo, there's nobody
Yeah.
ostracizing, saying kill them, do this or that, stone them to death, and all that doesn't happen. This is and the other thing is that what you do in private life, which you're not harming other people in society, is not a matter for the government or state to interfere.
Right.
So it's like, even if you're not doing your yagna, you're not doing some ritual that you're supposed to do in your tradition, it's not my business.
Right.
So even if it were wrong, the point is it's none of my business.
Yeah.
Whereas in the West, it's become very important to police everybody else's behavior.
Okay.
Why? See, in Judeo-Christian thought, in Christianity particularly, and Islam, both of these. Let's leave Judaism out of this particular point. Christianity and Judaism and Islam require that all human beings have to conform. It's not good enough that I did the right thing. I have to make others do the right thing. You know, so I have been authorized and required by God to go and set other people right.
Right.
So if I think that his homosexuality is bad, then I have to go and fix them also, everybody else.
Yeah.
Whereas in the Hindu, if I feel it's not the right thing for me, it's not the right thing for me, but why should it affect what you do, you know?
Right.
You know, so there is also this idea of each person is only responsible for their own journey.
Right.
And there is no collective salvation. Whereas in Christianity, it is collective salvation. You have to, that's why it is group-oriented religion. You have a flock like a flock of sheep.
Yeah.
So you're managing flock, okay? And whereas here in India, the deity could be a very tiny mandir with just one person able to go at a time. It doesn't even have a room for 1,000 people to sit together in the traditional sense. It could be a little isolated thing. Whereas in the West, in Christianity, the cathedral is a very big place.
Yeah.
It's a group event. It's power. It's collective. So, you know, we are all together, collective and Christians, and therefore, if homosexuality is bad, all of us will go and fix this guy. That kind of a very Christian idea and a Muslim idea. It's not a Hindu idea. Hindu idea is, okay, if he is like he is, fine, that's his business.
Right.
And he has to get the counseling, get the advice, decide what he should do to cope with his situation. I don't have any right to go and force him to change.
Right.
Certainly, the government has no right to impose legal sanctions against people for private life.
But I think now that's what's going on, forcing
Yes.
the government to legalize things, and
Yeah.
that's where the protests arise.
The Hindu right wing have a problem too. They are kind of colonized
Right.
into Western universalism.
Right.
And they've picked up these issues which they find embarrassing
Right.
because they have this difference anxiety. They should be able to say, what the hell, you know? I mean, if somebody is homosexual, why is your problem?
Right.
He is what he is, why is it your problem?
So I think that's where it's arising,
Yes.
because of the Hindu right wing picking up those concepts. It looks like Hinduism has always having a problem with
Right,
it.
right. I have had many arguments with Hindu right-wing people saying
Yeah.
as far as homosexuality, gay, this and that is concerned, it is not a matter for the state.
Right.
Whether it is dharmic or adharmic is a different issue, but enforcing dharma is not a state.
Right.
State has no right. King has no right to enforce dharma
Right.
and his idea of dharma. Because to the extent the behavior is not creating a problem in rest of society. I mean, if somebody is a suicide bomber, it's a social problem. We have to take care of that. Or
Right.
somebody is polluting the air and doing something wrong, smoking or throwing toxins, is creating a problem for society. It is the government's job to
Right.
stop that. But if in someone's private life, whatever they're doing, it is not the government's job.
Right.
There were no kings enforcing laws against gays and all that.
So a little bit has to be taught to our Hindu right wing groups.
Of course.
Because they are propagating a lot of misunderstood concepts
right.
where Hinduism is being put in the bad light.
Right.
I find that even colonial invasion and racism is justified in the Western philosophy as being prized to civilized savages. So could you tell us what is the actual motivation for them going around with these invasions?
Well, you know, when ideology teaches you superiority of yourself
Right.
and other people's inferiority, and this ideology is sanctioned by God in your book, you know, it's very powerful, dangerous thing.
Yeah.
And then if the business interests, the mercantile interests, the commercial interests are to go and invade them, capture their land and do all that, then, you know, this ideology gives you good justification. You can do
Right.
it and say, I'm killing heathens, I'm killing evil people, you know, and then you start looking for their errors and flaws and blaming it on them. So
Right.
this whole history of invasions, conquests, intercontinental wars, all of this, people from one continent, you know, let's say Europeans going to the Americas or Arabs going various places and invading, has been justified on these ideas, these religious ideas. So racism has this kind of an origin. Now people will counter by saying, oh, there are wars in India also.
Yeah.
Point is different. If there is a war between two neighboring countries, it's like, you know, Germany and France having a war. It is not the same thing as you going to another continent with different race, different language, different ethnicity and controlling them. That intercontinental, interracial, interreligious, you know, is more fierce, dangerous, because there you can holocaust, you can genocide them.
Yeah.
Whereas, you know, if it's locals, they also realize that at the end of the day, we are friends, we are brothers, sisters, because we are neighbors. A fight between neighbors is different than a whole neighborhood organizing an army and going to a different neighborhood and attacking them. That's a different kind of scale. So violence is all bad, but there's a different scale. And the intercontinental, interracial, oppression, conquest, genocides have been done in the name of usually Christianity or Islam.
Oh,
Usually.
that's interesting. So it's not for spices that they actually came to India.
Well, they came to plunder and get money out of it, but then they justified it as,
Yeah.
we are here to govern for your own good.
Yeah.
East India Company was the world's first and largest outsourcing company. Like we are doing outsourcing.
Yeah.
So they were outsourcing to the king that I'll run your country for you. I'll run your kingdom. And I'll keep all the taxes. I'll have the police. I'll have the army. I'll control the temples.
Yeah.
And all this revenue we collect is our fee for managing on an outsourcing basis your kingdom. And you just sit on the elephant on the throne, we'll give you gun salute and you'll be looked after. And we'll take your son, he'll go to Cambridge and play polo, like that. So this, in a sense, some king sold out also. You have to put that blame also.
Right.
Our people collaborated and they joined hands with the British to help the British rule the people because they would stay in power and get some glory.
Like that's happening now too with respect to Sanskrit scholars.
Sanskrit scholars and so many intellectuals.
Yeah.
And I don't exempt the current government either, and I know that some people in the current establishment are also sold out.
Right.
The West is very sneaky, very clever about infiltrating. I attended what was supposed to be a closed door meeting at Princeton University, organized by some of the intelligence agencies and church and all that, on on this rise of saffron in India.
Yeah.
And they were attacking, they were really condemning, attacking. They decided that one group has to stop this attacking and try to infiltrate.
Right.
And that group contains some of the same people who 10 years earlier were writing anti-RSS books and now started turning pro and have infiltrated very successfully, and some of them are felicitated in India at the highest levels. Because our people are just not vigilant.
Right.
We're not even going, some of the people getting all these awards are actually, they have a whole history of being against our culture.
Right.
And now they are looked upon as great guys because they know so much about us, they can also impress us. They can sing bhajans, they can dress in dhotis, and they can be so charming.
Right. So we should perhaps learn something from history.
Yes, we should learn something from history.